Hi everybody, and welcome back to day 2 of our class. So today we are going to be treating or making our cup corsets. These are already made bra cups, as you can see. So right here I've already done my basic things for my pattern. I've slanted my shoulder. This is my bust point, my under bust point, and my waist points, just as we did in the other type of corset. It's just the same thing but a little bit different. So now after this, all I'm going to do is same process we did for the last class. On the bust point, you want to measure ½ inch. Same thing with the under bust and on the waist point. So you want to measure ½ inch on this point, and then you want to connect the lines. As I said for the other video I made for the other class, this ½ inch is for the center point, the center part of our corset. So next thing you want to do, the bra cup corset is actually, for me, it is the easiest type of corsets to make because you already have your bra cups made. You don't have to stress yourself over anything again. So I'm going to take my bra cup now and place it at my under bust point. As you can see, now you can keep your bra cup to be straight like this. You can slant your bra cup a little bit if you want to give it like a very nice, very cute, beautiful shape. So after placing it, I want my bra cup to be a bit slanted. But first of all, before I do that, for my bust point, same thing with the other corset, I'm going to go down by ½ inch. I'm going to go down by ½ inch, and I'm just going to rule that line. Yes, so this is the point I'm going to be working with now, and I'm going to place my bra cup, and I want to slant it just like a little bit, not too much at all, because of the style that I will be making. The next thing you want to do is check your shoulder to under bust measurement. If your shoulder to under bust is 13, then when you are measuring from here to under the bra cup, it should be 13 or highest 13.5 or 14. If your shoulder to under bust is 15, when you place your tape here from your shoulder and you put it at your under bust, you should be getting 15 or 15.5 at most. If it's going to 16, 17, then it is too big, and then you need to readjust your bra cup so it fits. It does not have to, your bra cup, the down part of your bra cup does not have to touch your under bust line for it to be correct. You just have to shift and continue adjusting till you get what you want correctly. So for this particular corset, the shoulder to under bust I will be using is 14. So I am just going to check to make sure that I have 14. Here I have 14.5. I'm just going to adjust my cup a little bit, and now I have my 14, and I'm just going to mark that. So the thing with this cup corset now is you have to be extremely careful because the cup can shift. I already marked where my 14 is, so I'm just going to trace. What you want to do is trace your bra cup carefully. You have to hold it lightly so it does not press, and also so the bra cup does not shift. Yeah, so now I have traced it. It is quite faint, so now I am just going to use my ruler to make it darker, just to trace what I have already drawn from my bra cup to make it darker, and so it is more clear to see. Yeah, as you can see, I am done with that, and my bra cup, when I put it, it fits into my line perfectly. The next thing you want to do now is you want to measure out ½ inch from this line inward, not outside. You want to measure ½ inch. This ½ inch that we are measuring inside now is going to be our allowance, sewing allowance for this bra cup. Without the allowance, if you cut it directly and you want to fix your bra cup, you're going to be fixing your bra cup somewhere around here, and it will not fit because it is now going to be, this part where you are meant to fix your bra cup is now going to be bigger than the bra cup size itself. So you want to add this ½ inch. So this is where you'll be sewing into. Once you've marked out your ½ inches, you just want to connect your line. You can do this with your hand, and you can do this with a ruler if you want, if a ruler is easier for you. So after doing this, I'm going to connect this line to this point. As you can see, I already have my center point, and this is my corset part. Now for this part, I'm going to take it like this and connect it straight back to where the bodice will be. After that, remember in the last corset we made, we took our nipple to nipple or bust span measurements. I'm going to be doing the same thing here. My nipple to nipple that I'm going to be using here is 7, which is 3.5. So I'm going to be taking my 3.5 from this line we took. Remember, not from the very edge of the pattern, but from the line that we took. So this is my 3.5. I'm going to be taking this measurement also on my under bust, and also you can take it to make this measurement to your bust point. Just want to take your ruler and draw a straight line. Now your line doesn't have to extend to the bust point. You can just stop right where this your curve, your bust curve is. Next thing you want to do is you want to measure out 1 inch or ½ inch, depending on how big you want your dart to be. If you use ½ inch, that's fine, it's going to work well. If you use 1 inch, it's going to work well. But for me, I like to use 1 inch, so I'm going to measure out 1 inch on both sides of the line. And then you just want to create your dart, just like a triangular dart. And you've created your dart. The next thing you want to do for your cup corset is you want to take your body measurements now. So I'm going to put my bust measurements, my under bust measurements, and my waist measurements. Remember I said in the last time, if you're going to be using a yoke, then you have to measure the neckline and everything. For this particular corset, I am going to be using the yoke because I'm going to be using a skin tone mesh at the top parts of this particular corset. But first things first, I'm going to take the body measurements. So the bust for this corset is 34.5. I'm going to be dividing that into 4, and I'm getting 8.7. I'm going to approximate that to 9. So 9 inches now. I'm taking my measurement from this side of the line, not from the very end, as I said earlier. I have 9. This is my 9. Then I'm going to be adding 3 inches as my sewing allowance. You can add 4 inches, you can add 3 inches, but 2 inches is too small. Just in case of anything, I like to add 3 inches to mine. So 9. I already have 9 as my bust, plus 3 inches, that's 12. I'm going to be marking out my 12 right here. The under bust is 28 and the waist is 25. 28 divided into 4 is 7. Remember we took out 1 inch on this side, but at the under bust is less than half of an inch, but I'm going to take it as ½ inch and replace that ½ inch back. So I have 7 plus the ½ inch for this dart that I'm going to be taking out. That's 7.5. 7.5 plus 3, 1, 2, 3, that's 10.5. I have my under bust measurement. And then for the waist is 25. Usually I would use my snatch waist measurement for this corset, but I am not, because I am going to be adding an inbuilt corset, so I do not need to touch this at all. So for my waist, I have very close to 6.2, very close to 6.5. 6.5. Remember here we took out 1 inch on both sides, which is now 2 inches. So I'm going to be adding that 2 inches back. 6.5 plus 2 inches, that's 8.5, plus 2 inches for the sewing allowance, that's 10.5 for the waist point. After marking, all you want to do now is, just want to connect your lines. Yeah, so I have marked out the body part of this corset. Next thing I want to do is mark out the neck part, because I am going to be adding a yoke. So for the width of the neck, I am going to be using 3.6 inches, and I'm going to be using 2.5 inches for the depth. I know this sounds very high, but yes, that is exactly what I am looking for. I do not want the neck to be too low. I want it to be very, very high. So after doing that, remember in the last corset we just cut out this part, but because I'm using a yoke and I'm going to be attaching this yoke back to my bra cup corset, I'm going to place my bra cup back again the same way I placed it. Make sure you place it and it is touching the lines that you drafted. That's the second line, the first one you drafted rather. Then what you want to do is you want to set it, use your hand to hold it properly, and you want to trace out the top parts of this bra cup. And I am done. So I am just going to use my ruler again to make this more obvious so you can see it clearly. Yes, I hope you guys can see it. And now you can see that it's stopping here, so I'm going to take this line and connect it to this point. You can use your ruler again to just connect. So now this part, which is my yoke, is going to be useful to me. I'm going to be placing my skin tone mesh and attaching it to this part of my corset. Now I'm sure you're going to be wondering, oh, why is this yoke coming to this point and not to this point, since we added and this is where we're going to be sewing. Remember when we sew this bra cup, we're not sewing it on this point like this, we're sewing it on this point, and our bra cup comes first before the yoke. So after placing the bra cup, the yoke will fall perfectly on this part, which is this side, and then I can attach. And that is basically it. We are done drafting our corset. If you're not using the yoke, if it's just a normal bra cup corset without any other attachments, you're not placing any nets, skin to mesh or anything, then you do not need to add this. So let's get into the cutting part of it. Okay, so now it's time to cut out this part. I will not be separating anything here because we haven't drafted the back of this corset and we still need to draft it. So I'm just going to take out a few parts. Okay, so now for this armhole part, I'm not going to be taking it down this way. I'm actually going to be taking out my armhole normally, because I'm still going to remove this one separately because of my yoke. Once that is done, I can also take out my neck. Yeah. So now we're going to use this to draft the back pattern of our corset. So I'm just going to place this like this onto the next pattern. If you are going to be using a zip, just like in the last corset, you can keep your space. You can decide to draw it out if you want to. But if you are sure of the measurement, you can just place it and then get to cutting. But I am going to be drawing out the line. And now I can just place it. I'm going to actually be using a zip for this corset. I'm going to be using a zipper. So I actually do need my 2 inches zipper allowance. So let me just write zip here, so that you can understand. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pin this down a little, because I don't want it moving about. I do not want it moving about. I'm just going to pin this. Mind you, also there are different ways to cutting your corset, different ways to cutting this cup corset, different ways to cutting the padded corset, but for me this is just an easy way that anyone can easily just understand and would see results to getting a perfect corset at the end of the day. So after pinning this, I'm just going to trace this exact same thing out. The back, I'm still going to use the yoke. Every pin here, I'm going to use it. So I'm just going to trace that out. For the neck part, I am going to be using, I'm just going to increase it a little bit. Just a little bit. This is my shoulder slant. For the front, I used about 2.5 inches. For the back, I'll use 1.5 inches. And I'm just going to draw that line out. Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to draw that line out. And it's just a little difference. There's just a little difference, not too obvious. And now I'm just going to cut it. Alright, so taking this out now. So remind you, my pattern is not on fold. You can fold your pattern in two before doing this, or you can cut it on just one side, just as I am doing. So now that I am done with this, I'm just going to fold this. This is the zipper part, just to make it equal. And now I can unpin the front from the back. But before I do that, remember our bust point on the front pattern, the original bust point, not the one that we went down 1.5 back. I'm going to be ruling that line because I'm going to need it at the back. Remember, the back also has a loop, it's not a complete back. So I'm going to be ruling that line because I'm going to need it later. Okay, so this is my front pattern. As you can see, very easy, very simple. And this is the back. This is the line that I ruled out. I'm going to extend this line to the very end of the pattern. Please try to make your ruler straight as possible. Yes, so I have ruled my line. This is my yoke part now for the back. I am going to be adding a dart at the back of this pattern. So remember, at the front part we used 3.5 inches for our dart. We're going to be replacing the same thing here on the back of the pattern. So after measuring my 3.5, same thing we did before. You want to connect your line. Now for the front part of the pattern, remember we used 1 inch on both sides of the pattern, but for the back we're going to be using just half of an inch. The back doesn't need any very big, very open darts because there's no curve going, there's not really any design basically going on. The back is just plain and flat, you understand? So that is why our dart for this one is just going to be half inch on both sides. In total now we have 1 inches. I already have my neck cut out and everything. So basically I'm done with the back pattern of this corset. All I have to do now is just cut. I am not showing or removing this particular zipper part because my zip is going to extend to my skin tone mesh. All you have to do now is just cut. Remember, this is your yoke. I'm going to be using my yoke, so I'm going to keep it. If you are making a corset that does not have a yoke, this is what you're going to throw this part away because you do not need it. This is what you'll be needing. And if you want to make your back prettier, to look better, you can slant your ruler this way, slanted facing your zipper part. You can make it as deep as you want, just as I said for the other one. You can slant it like this so that you have a V shape at the back of your corset and it looks very pretty. If you are using eyelets, that's the ropes, then you're going to take out this zip allowance completely. You're going to cut it out completely and still take in about 1 or 2 inches depending on how wide you want the space at the back to be, depending on how wide you want that opening to be. But for this one, I need my zip allowance, so I'm not going to be taking it out. Also, I am not going to be slanting the back of this pattern because I need it to be straight so I can attach my yoke. I am not doing any V-shaped design at the back. The back can be straight and my style will still come out perfect. So now I'm just going to take out my darts. Also, remember from the last video of the other corset I made, I said to always remember to add your seam allowance here, so you know exactly where you will be joining to. And also don't forget your arrows, please. Do not forget your arrows, so you know that this is the top part and this is the bottom, so you do not turn your pattern upside down at the end of the day. Because both sides are straight, you want to put your arrows, you can put it on both sides just in case your pattern flips. You understand exactly where is the top part and where is the bottom. Also, you know exactly where to join, so you do not join it like this, you join it exactly the way it's supposed to be. So this is my yoke and everything is just, you know, perfect. This is my front pattern, so we're going to be cutting out the front pattern now so you can see what that looks like. So for the front pattern, I'm going to be starting with my darts. Yes, you want to extend these darts up here. You're going to cut it out, it's not going to be separated. So after doing that, now you're going to come this way and then up. This is because I am going to be using my yoke, and then I just connect that back. So this is the front part of my yoke now. Understand? This is the front part of my yoke. And now for this part, I am not going to be using this part, this center part, for anything. So now we can take it out completely like this and just cut. So as you can see now, these parts are separated and you just want to continue cutting and cutting. So now this part, I'm not using it for anything, I can take it out. You can see my corset already. This is my dart points, this is my yoke, and then my bra cup is just, my bra cup is going to sit beautifully at the center of all this like this once I am done. So as always, this is my center front or CF, this is my side front or SF. I'm going to still be putting my arrows so I know exactly where this is facing. This right here is my seam allowance, as I said before, 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is my yoke, so this is my front pattern and this is my back pattern. I hope the class was clear. I hope you understood everything and hope you enjoyed the class. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for joining. God bless you. Bye.